I have very faint memories of it, really, other than trotting up some rather dusty little staircase, up into a rather dreary little sort of room. Then suddenly out of the gloom came the photographer, who seemed to be a fairly elderly woman, dressed in sort of black and purple. And she came down and didn't say very much, and then just pressed a button and disappeared.
Funnily enough, I don't remember anything about the shoot except that I had a terrible hangover for it. And I can't remember where it was, I don't know who the photographer was. It's just kind of what you did.
One of my sons was always called it the girls for sale page. Sometimes they're people who are actually engaged, and then they're not for sale, they're sold.
People have said to me since that we were known as the girls in pearls.
For over 100 years, Country Life magazine has celebrated the great country houses of England and peeked into the lives of those who live in them. The most well-known page features a photograph of a nicely brought-up young woman, often announcing her engagement to the right sort of husband.
Looking back towards me.
The page is actually aimed for everyone. The mothers love it because if your daughter's in the magazine, you've made it. The father's all terribly proud about it. And then the younger boys like looking at pretty girls.
I'd almost have a little bit of leg showing. That's it.
In fact, it's a remarkable page. That the one thing you can be certain is that everyone will look at that page.
So is it sort of like a posh page 3?
It is a posh page 3. It was, I mean, it was just about 100 years ahead of page 3. It's a slightly more sophisticated version.
How did you meet your husband?
Shooting. Grousemore in Yorkshire.
How did you meet Sam?
At a pub quiz in Bristol.
Marriage gets a bad press. The truth is, every girl I've ever met, in their heart of hearts, wants to get married to a lovely husband and have a happy life. And frankly, there's not much better than that.
These girls were brought up to believe that marrying well would deliver the happily ever after. But what actually happened after their photographs were taken? This is the sometimes unexpected tale of 5 of the girls in pearls.
Hello to see you.
Arabella announced her nuptials on the page in 1990, much to her mother's satisfaction.
What did you think of it, darling, when you saw this?
Well, it's not my favourite. I think it's quite woolly.
I don't think I expected her to look quite such,
So woolly.
Well, yes, they were. I was rather more the plunging bit like now.
Yeah, more plunging.
Yeah.
Not a vest, t-shirt.
No, I beg your pardon.
And the pearls? No pearls?
No pearls. Oh, tut.
Earrings.
Pearl earrings, yes.
Earrings.
Yes.
And what did you think of Arabella's photograph being in Country Life?
Oh, I was very proud. In fact, I rather think I spoke to Rosalind Mann, who'd already taken mine, and said I hope she'd,
So you applied
be
pressure.
sending it in, yes.
My father's family, one of them was married to Decca Mitford, and we were also connected to the Churchills, but by marriage that was. Yeah.
Did you have any family money? Were you coming to it with your own?
No, sadly, an absolute absence of trust fund. No, complete absence. Well, there had been money, but it had gone. I think marriage struck me as something that women ought to aspire to. It was very much how I was brought up, that I should be married by the time I was 30. I think I was looking for somebody with the same background, the same aspirations, a good job. You know, he'd been to a good school. He was a lawyer. It kind of ticked the boxes that I'd been brought up to anticipate should be ticked, really.
I would think that overall, the important things for somebody starting out in married life is compatibility, respect, affection in every dimension.
And shared values?
And shared values, yes, compatibility, respect, shared values,
Wealth?
affection.
Fast riches.
Well, obviously. I mean, money does so
Well, absence
I mean,
of is a
look
bit
at
of a
these poor
tragedy.
people in
like it's
Haiti.
almost- Gosh,
I mean,
yes.
that shows you what money can do and what they need. Oh dear.
Money can be a lubricant, I think. Can't it?
Opens doors.
Hello.
Hello, Duchess.
Come in.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Henrietta Tiarks was the it girl of her time when she appeared on the page in 1960.
My mother, because I think she only had one child, seemed to have me painted every year. So there I was 4, and there I was 5, and there I was, I can't have been 14, what's that say, 56? My family weren't aristocrats, but my father was a merchant banker. I suppose in those days we would have been thought of as upper middle class. The year before I came out, a photograph was published in the Express as a competition. Is this the most beautiful girl in England?
And she got engaged to one of the most eligible men, Robin Russell, the heir to Woburn Abbey and an estate now worth £500 million.
Well, the Abbey, if you look straight through to the right of the summer house, you can just see the Abbey. It's about a 20-minute walk. I certainly probably could have been an actress. I was asked to read for the starring role in a film, and I remember ringing Robin up and telling him. He could see how exciting it was, and he was very, very positive about it. And then he said, but of course, if you ever did anything like that, you could never become my wife.
So the wife's role
Is to support her husband.
How do you feel about that?
But I've always felt that is what a wife's role is. If you don't feel you should support your husband, then don't get married. To put it very simply, we are just another sort of mammal. Now, you haven't got female lions or lionesses and elephants and monkeys all changing their roles because they feel that women should be equal. As animals, we are designed to do the things that we should do in order to... All we're supposed to do is breed. So the men go out killing the animals, we look after the babies, we cook the food. I mean, why should we stray too far from our roots?
I grew up in a village in Hertfordshire called Essendon. My parents moved there when I was about 6 months, and they thought they'd like to live in the country. Anyway, I was whisked off to Heathfield, where I didn't have to pass a common entrance. I got in on the fact that I said that I liked to do needlework. Heathfield was a marvellous school, terribly happy, completely unacademic in those days. And in fact, when I was there in the sixth form, my father only realised after the third term that I was only taking one subject, which was Italian. And I could avoid that lesson if I forgot to take my books to the lesson. So in fact, I was at school doing nothing. The expectation was to find a good husband and get married. You know, there was absolutely no necessity to get a job.
Eligible men ideally came with one key attribute, an estate. The bigger the better. Miles Sand's family owns 5,000 acres of the Lake District, containing almost 100 properties.
I have a sister either side of me. There were just 3 of us. I was the only son. You know, right from an early stage, I mean, I knew what I was destined for.
What did you know you were destined for?
Well, to follow in the family footsteps and look after the estate and to ensure its future. I had a bit of a wild sort of youth in London and didn't accomplish very much. And then I remember waking up one morning, I thought, well, I've done London, had it. I really want to go home. But I knew, I'd always been told, there's not much point coming home without a wife to run things. You can't do it on your own. Unfortunately, bumped into Camilla.
Got this in pocket. I did the season. You had to give the best party, you had to have the prettiest dress, you had to parade yourself, really. It's a marketplace for pretty girls to marry people with estates And that's really the best way. They're going to see them all at the same time, and they can make their selection.
Nobody told me what the season was, and I couldn't understand why all these invitations kept arriving in my post and what I was supposed to do with them. And I sort of rocked up, and I didn't know these people from Adam. I thought, well, who are these people inviting me to these parties? I suppose I was your average predatory male, I think, just enjoying London and all that London had to offer.
I was probably 21. I'd just come back from Florence, and I'd been going out with somebody, and they hadn't asked me to marry them after about a year and a half, and I thought, well, this is ridiculous, I can't hang around forever. And then I met Miles, and everybody said, oh, you'll never marry Miles Sands because he's so wild and he's got so many girlfriends, and I thought to myself, well, I've got plenty of time, I'll hang around, And actually, below me down, we had 3 dates, and he asked me to marry him.
I'd played around enough in London, wanted to come home, and she was my choice, and there was no point fanning around, get on with it.
All I do remember is that when we came out of the church, there was a large poster affixed to the railings outside, advertising a local Amdram production, which ironically was called Intent to Murder.
My best man had come down from Scotland, and he comes down with more whiskey than most of us can drink. And that sort of kept us warm. Oh.
I thought he was a lot of fun, a bit wild and woolly, but when we got married he would settle down and become a responsible person. I thought he was just enjoying his youth.
Sally had arrived in London in the 60s, her mother having decided she needed to go to finishing school.
I was sent off to Lucy Clayton's to be tidied up, and we had to learn all sorts of funny things like how to get in and out of a sports car elegantly without showing your knickers and things. Got myself a job, which I was sacked from for behaving badly.
I got a job on the Royal Exchange Insurance Group, very good company.
Hello, good afternoon.
I met a lot of ladies, a lot of women, girls, ladies, yeah. It was the 60s.
Fun time?
Great time.
I went in to this pub just off the Gloucester Road, I think. I ended up sitting next to this chap, very good looking. He seemed a lot of fun, and I suppose I was flattered by his attention.
She was lovely, she's a clever girl. I always seem to remember she had a good head for booze, better than mine.
Alistair was brought up in a very traditional way, with staff, a pretty civilised way of life.
Well, Dad was a land agent for the Duke of Buccleuch. I thought I was going to do the same thing, for goodness sake. And I didn't have to work for it. Dad got it off his father. That was before I learnt that the first one builds it, the second one carries it on, and the third one loses it.
To talk about my childhood is quite strange because, of course, it was very much to my parents' credit, actually, that we were brought up in what is the third largest house in England, I think. And yet, at no stage were we really aware of it. When we weren't at school, we were at Knoll in a state of, I suppose, total kind of isolation in a way. But at no stage did I ever think that where we lived was different to where our friends lived. My first job was Sotheby's, and it was one of the things that people kind of did. They went and worked, sort of nice girls went and worked on the front counter at Sotheby's, which was basically just being a receptionist, but you definitely had to have the right accent and, all that sort of stuff. It was the 70s, yes, and a lot of promiscuity. I mean, endless bed hopping. Everybody was bed hopping, and but I have to say I could never really pull it off because I always made the mistake of falling in love. Stuart was the head of the antiquarian book department at Christie's. He was an American, he was very good looking. I always rather liked him. He was very sort of entirely different from the other people that I hung out with. He absolutely wasn't sort of in the pub every night, you know, getting completely hammered and you know, whatever. He was rather sort of upstanding. I do believe that he did love me, but I think that the whole Noel thing definitely came into it. I mean, I think there was a sort of, you know, a snobbery thing. I think it was sort of, you know, quite a catch. We had our arms around each other, and I just remember looking at him directly in the face and saying, "This is going to be all right, isn't it?" And he said, "Yes." But I think, you know, I think I just knew that it wasn't going to be all right somehow. You know, there was just something in me deep down inside which was telling me that maybe not.
The Girls in Pearl's weddings were once the celebrity events of their day. Henrietta's was reported by journalists from all over the world. She wasn't just marrying a duke, she was also taking on one of the biggest estates in the whole of Britain.
Life as I knew it was over. And I was going to have to do a job that I had no idea how to do and had never even thought about it. Woburn Abbey was a major tourist attraction then. We had 1 million visitors a year. First of all, it was an incredible art collection. I didn't know that much about art. And there was a safari park and there was an antique centre. I think in those days there were over 300 people working there. And there was a huge catering department. I mean, it was terrifying.
Where were you going to be in that?
Well, helping to run it. I mean, Robin would make the major decision, but he'd be in London all week, and so it was going to be my job. We arrived into a totally running house, so it had a full staff, everything just carried on happening. And it didn't matter, for instance, what I ordered for meals. What they had decided they were going to do happened. It was quite disconcerting to start with, I can promise you, it really was. For a year, I was pathetic. I mean, I used to hide in my room most of the time, thinking, I just don't know what to do with this.
There was something in me which was telling me that this was wrong. It was not what I should be doing, that my heart wasn't in it, that I possibly didn't even love this man. By that stage, the juggernaut was rolling, and it was kind of unstoppable. And the presents were coming in, the invitations were out, the wedding dress was being made, you know. My father gave fantastic parties, and my elder sister got married in 1979, so, you know, the whole sort of formula was there, and the idea was that the service was at 5 o'clock in the chapel at Knoll, followed by a party which went on till sort of 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, with a huge banquet and, you know, the whole thing. So it was a major deal. So we had this huge party, and at the end of it, we actually slept in separate bedrooms.
Miles lived in a little flat in the Fulham Road in Danehouse Street, and I didn't really honestly think beyond the picture of that, to the extent that when we came back from our honeymoon, I went off to Henning and Hollis, which is the stationers of the time, and had 52 Danehouse Street paper ordered and made, and came back home, and Miles said, well, pack up. And I said, what do you mean pack up? He said, well, we're going to go live in Cumbria. I said, we can't go live in Cumbria. I just had the writing paper made for Danehouse Street. I was 22 or 23, miles from anywhere. There were very few young of our age around to invite for supper and to generally muck around with. It's terribly lonely having one baby, and there's nobody to go to tea with. There's nowhere to go except walk it round the garden. And in fact, I left Miles on the day of the royal wedding. The emotion that you get with, you know, the whole of the country behind this two loving couple, and it was all marvellous and fairy tale. I think probably I was just feeling the loneliness, and, you know, there must be more to life than this, I suppose. So I picked up the baby, I picked up my wedding presents, I put them into my Fiat 127, and I got to the top of the drive, and I thought, where on earth am I going to go?
In many ways, it was very happy. We had a lot in common. Unfortunately, my husband didn't really enjoy being a lawyer, but he just couldn't get over that. I suppose a lot of people don't like their jobs, and yet sometimes you feel, I'm an adult, I have responsibilities, I have to work. I think, you know, I don't know what the problem was. He just wasn't engaged. And it wasn't as if he wanted to rush off and join the circus or do something else. He had nothing else in mind to do. He just didn't want to be a lawyer. But unfortunately, that was all he was qualified to do. What we didn't have in the marriage was money, and that completely constrained us. We were renting a house, and we had no assets. Everything had gone. I mean, mercifully, I had a job, and yes, it allowed me to destroy my marriage. So you could argue that both ways, but it gave me I could support myself and my son. Fortunately, I mean, it was 3 years ago, so I was able to buy my little house with a huge mortgage, and I am an example of toxic debt. This is what it looks like. I am one of those mortgages with Northern Rock that they probably shouldn't have given, but they did. So here we are. So in fact, I own this house, and probably most of the country owns this house too. Well, this is a tiny house, absolutely tiny house, but it's cheap to run, and there are just two of us, and so it suits us fine.
Alistair went back to agricultural college. He was doing a sandwich year where he was milking cows. So we lived in a pretty grisly farm cottage, which was a slight culture shock. And got a job as an assistant farm manager. And it was about that time that our daughter was born. But his drinking was getting worse again. And things started going downhill slightly. It brought it home to me when we went to see other friends of ours who had got married and settled down, you know, and husbands were sort of saying, well, we have one glass of wine with our supper, you know. And it suddenly brought it home to me that we had no organised plan or budget, or we just lived from hand to mouth, really. Jobs didn't last. We moved house a lot, going to other jobs, moving into different cottages here, there and everywhere. It was quite an unstable way of life. Things had been getting pretty tough with Alistair's drinking, but I didn't actually know that that was the problem, because by this time he was drinking secretly. I walked out on him one day after a particularly difficult time and left him a Dear John note.
I came back from work one day and I found a little note saying, I think we ought to part. Your fag money's on the table. And then I didn't know where she'd gone. And she'd taken the children with her on a sort of break. And yes, I remember it very, very well. It's the sort of thing you don't forget. She must have been in a dreadful state. Dreadful state.
Hello. Come on in.
Hello, hello. Good morning. How are you? Come in on this sunny Lakeland day.
So what happened when Camilla got to the end of the lane that day of the royal wedding?
She disappeared off for about an hour, and I didn't think much about it. I thought, well, she'll come back. I'm not quite sure what you did. I think you probably went down to a lay-by and sat and thought about things and turned around and came home again.
And then you didn't even blink when I came in the room. You didn't even say, "Oh, you're back," or anything.
I didn't think it was any...
So I unpacked the car, put the baby back to bed, and came in and cooked dinner, probably.
Yeah. Nothing was said. Anyway, she's remained here ever since.
How long ago was that?
A long time ago.
That was whenever the royal wedding was, in 1982 or 3 or whenever that was.
Mm.
Did you think that Camilla ever think that she would seriously leave?
No, not seriously.
Why not?
Didn't think she had any reason to, really.
So there's only room here for not very many people left. So Miles and I, we had a double portrait. Everybody is a relation. Every single person.
Well, all the portraits are relatives, yes, yeah.
This is a most marvellous portrait of Miles's grandmother, Dulcie Redford.
My mother said she was the most difficult woman she'd ever met.
When she died, she had every colour of Cartier jewellery, sapphires, rubies, diamonds, emeralds, and the whole lot she had sold. She wouldn't let anybody in the family have them, which was just so annoying. But they lived here in quite grand style, which all changed when we came in, really.
Why is that?
I think it's...
Well, it didn't need the staff, it couldn't afford the staff, and the family, fortunately, our oil money died out a long time ago. And when you look out of the window, what is there? There's no gold mine out there. It's forestry and agriculture, and that's the only source of income. You've got to, until we sort of started developing holiday business, that was it. This wall was built in the Victorian period, just to surround the building. And I suppose in their day, to keep the hoi polloi out. It's covered in sort of broken glass, which you probably shouldn't get away with today. Well, now, because we're sort of open to the public and rely on tourism, that people walk around the garden and expect access wherever and whenever they like.
Do you mind that?
No, it's a sort of, it's a mixed blessing. They're a necessary, I won't say evil, but they're a form of income, general public.
Bella, come on. Last day of the shoot. Come on.
The country house dream is not exactly as it once was. Nowadays, the residents of these estates often have to get used to the idea of serving rather than just being served.
I was keen on shooting, and I had an excellent keeper, and it seemed pity not to extend things to the more commercial aspect of doing it. And then we discovered that people rather wanted to stay up
And stay somewhere nice as well. It wasn't a pub.
Said, well, why stay in a hotel? Why not come and stay with us? And then we thought, well, actually, this is good money.
It was like a private house party, the money went out of the way. We were the hosts, and we ran it.
Bloody hard work to stay up till 3 in the morning, because it's their party. They want a party. You want to go to bed, but you can't. And you've got to be up at 7 in the morning, and you've got all the stress of the day. Will it go right? Will it go wrong? And keep a smile on your face and not lose your temper. Over left.
It was exhausting, actually.
Yeah, it really was exhausting.
And then the private planes would come and arrive at Blackpool, and then
helicopters in the park.
Helicopters in the park, and as Miles says, a lot of these people are frightfully spoiled, and so you get a little tap on your bedroom door. Camilla, can you find a little masseuse for me, please, today? I don't feel like going shooting. Which, of course, this is the Lake District, and actually, no, you can't. But, those are the sort of requests that one is fielding.
Why was it necessary to do all of this suddenly?
Well, we had 5 children all in boarding school at the same time, and it was a no-brainer.
And how does it affect a marriage, running a place like this? I mean, are you together a lot?
24/7. And actually, I think our probably ideal holiday is to go off somewhere together without anybody else. So I think we're huge friends, and we know each other extremely well.
Is fidelity important in a long marriage?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that if we lived in London and the temptation was there, we look at a lot of our friends who have not survived the mileage.
I mean, I think I probably, having made the right decision in the first place, was lucky. Living in the country where there was no real distraction was lucky. So we've been very lucky from that point of view. As Miles says, if he was a hard-working banker in London and I was left on my own quite a lot, who knows? Who knows, eh? No.
How important is fidelity in a marriage?
If you're talking about the fidelity, I think you are. I think it's incredibly important for a woman. But I think women really shouldn't expect it from their husband. They think that is most important, that he never makes a fool of them. Go back to the animal world again.
And in the animal world?
Well, in the animal world, when a mother is rearing her young, she wouldn't let any other male animal near her.
Whereas the men?
I'm sure go hunting.
Henrietta's husband died 7 years ago, after 43 years of happy marriage. She's now left Woburn Abbey and lives in a slightly smaller house in the grounds.
I go back as little as I possibly can. I don't enjoy it. And in fact, the strange thing is I don't feel I ever lived there. I sit there sometimes thinking, I can't believe I actually ever lived here. It never felt like home. And of course, it never was my home.
Eldest son Andrew inherited the estate and is now installed with his wife, the new Duchess of Bedford.
Isn't that hideous?
No, if you've got all the bits coming off it too.
But it's hideous.
And lots of baby holes in there.
Hideous.
I think it was daunting when we moved in. It took quite a long time to have probably the courage to change things, because I think most girls sort of do want to eradicate signs of previous female existence in a house. So we're gradually getting around to doing things. At last, after probably 35 years, we got rid of the very 70s sort of chocolate brown carpet, and we've gone for paler. So generally, most times the mother comes back, I would say she sees one or two changes and notices them every time.
When I moved here, Robin had lived here from when he was about the same age as you. And he was perfectly happy that I changed bedrooms upstairs, but nothing in the main part of the house at all. And in fact, this room has still got the same silk. This hasn't been changed. No. The only thing I did was the curtains, because they were falling to bits. But Daddy had to choose them. So they are men's houses. They are not women's houses. And we don't really have a right to change things unless our husbands, I think, approve, because they're not our homes. It's quite different to a normal home, because these go man to man to man to man. And so it's actually important, I think, that the man feels comfortable.
But then also the girls have got to feel comfortable too. So I think when you say
the domestic part.
Daddy, chose the curtains. I would say he had a choice of.
No, absolutely not. No? We were having lunch with the Stanburys when they lived in Wiltshire.
Right.
These curtains were in their house, and Daddy said, "Where did that come from, Elizabeth? That is the perfect material for the candlelight room."
Is it easier to have a happy marriage when you've got money?
Of course it's easier. Of course it's easier. It's easier to live if you're warm. I've always thought if I was going to be very, very poor, I want to be very poor in a warm country. With everything comes a price to pay. And in many ways, if you have a life like Robin and I had, you have such responsibility to the people who you need to keep the thing going. It's now over 700 people. That you don't have the sort of life you'd really like to have. I mean, Robin and I we had a little tiny cottage in Suffolk. And when I say tiny, it was smaller than this room, that we used to escape to. Because when you're at Woburn, you don't feel you can just go to bed for the afternoon and read a book, because everybody who's there's life depends on you keeping the ball rolling. So we had to run away if we wanted to behave in an irresponsible manner. So no, there's a price to pay for everything. Every act has a consequence, and there's a price to pay for everything. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
To get a helicopter flight picked up from here to go out to Val would cost about 100 quid more than it would cost for a normal flight in.
Yeah, that was in August. No, that was out of season.
Camilla's time at the Great House is also coming to an end.
No brainer.
We've spent 30 years here now, really, upgrading this lovely property, and we're sort of taking a little bit of a back seat now. Handing it over to Edward, whenever that's going to be, it will be in extremely good condition, won't it? He'll have a few projects because there are so many houses on the estate that you can't do them all, but there will be some things for him to do, but the basic infrastructure is
The major
is
investment's
done.
been done.
The major investment,
He's going to be a lucky boy. But he'll need a good wife to maintain it, to carry on what Camilla started.
Sorry, Sasha, thank you.
The estate, all of it goes to
Edward.
And the rest?
Nothing.
How do they feel about that?
Well, they've grown up with it, so they're not at all surprised. I think it seems grossly unfair, but we wouldn't be standing here now if everything had been divided like they do in France.
It's all here for them to enjoy. It's just someone's got to take the responsibility, which is
Somebody
Edward.
has to be the captain of the
Someone's
ship.
got to be the captain.
Eldest child?
Unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not, no.
Explain that one.
Well, girls marry and hopefully marry an eldest son of another estate. Or whatever.
It was a result.
Who comes here next?
That's down to me. I'm going to take it all on.
The big man.
One day.
Gets it all.
Yeah.
Do people think, oh, you know, he's going to be running this big estate, I'd like to be his wife? Is it like that?
I don't think so, actually. It's one of those things that I kind of, not intentionally, but I keep it kind of low-key. I don't try and sort of, I know a lot of people who would kind of like to flaunt it, but definitely try, you know, keep it just low-key, because to me it's not, you know, that much of a big thing, and I don't think that someone that's chasing you because of what you've got is the person that you want to go after. I'd like to come back here with a wife definitely one day. I mean, there's a slim chance of me finding someone up here. So London's probably the best place to be at the moment. A lot of the girls are from the countryside and would love to go back to the countryside, but it's part of what people do these days, and you know, especially women as well. They go to the city, they try and, you know, make it on their own for a bit, and perhaps carry on staying there for a bit, but they do more the things that they want.
Hopefully get swept up by a nice, lovely young gentleman at the end of it.
Do you think they still want that in the end?
I do, yeah, definitely.
Well, let's see how this has been wrapped up. That very elegant corset. This is my wedding dress. Oh, no, sorry, our wedding dress.
It's the family wedding
family
dress.
wedding dress. My grandmother had it originally in, when, the 50s, I suppose? 50s or 60s?
Yeah, it was made by Belgian Sassoon.
In a family, if the men inherit, what are the girls supposed to do?
Well, I suppose probably 100 years ago I'd have been married off to someone in a similar situation to my brother, and probably would have, with any luck, you know, landed up in a nice house on...
With a grass wall.
With a grass wall.
Has that happened?
No, I've married someone who has got, or will eventually have a very nice farm down in Somerset. But I was never in a situation where I could afford to not work, so I'm an English teacher in a secondary school down in Bristol.
Do you think of your marriages, do you think your parents would be expecting to approve or not?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
I don't think there's any chance of the wrong girl. I don't think it would last.
It's always going to be hard to find the right woman that I think Mum will approve of, because she's not scared of saying what she thinks. So it would be nice to obviously find someone that I like, but she's gonna, you know, she's always going to be sort of kind of the well.
What about the girl that you got at the moment?
Will you have the same life as your mother, or would you want?
I would love the same life as my mother, but I won't get it. You know, it's just, well, I think Mama was particularly lucky that she ended up in a very beautiful place and has been able to have quite an interesting life and to not have to do a conventional job and things like that. But obviously, there aren't enough places in the world for everybody to have that situation.
There were 5 of us, 5 girls. My father desperately wanted a son, which was, of course, it was extremely important that he produced a son, because that was the only way that the house could remain within his immediate family. So one could argue that that's why there are so many of us, because, you know, just kept at it. And finally, come number 5, my mother, I suppose, just said, look, I'm sorry, that's it, you know, that's your lot.
What did you get then?
In terms of what?
House.
Nothing. I mean, you know, it finished. I mean, my father died, and that's it. It's over. It went to the nearest male. My cousin Robert lives at Knowle, and he is the son of my father's younger brother.
And where do you live?
And I live in Hammersmith, here. I mean, basically, as far as I'm concerned, this is now my home. I don't think of Knowle as my home. I have no wish whatever to go there. I mean, none at all. I don't want to sort of hang on to something emotionally which is gone. You know, it doesn't exist anymore. There's no point. I mean, that's just heartache. You know, all it can cause is heartache. You know, and I don't want heartache. The marriage lasted. We cohabited as man and wife in this house for 8 months, and I then called a cab. The atmosphere here was so dreadful, you know, and the tension was so enormous. And I just had to get out, you know, and he certainly wasn't going anywhere. You know, I remember him saying that. I mean, this was entirely my house. I mean, he had made no financial contribution to it at all. He said that he couldn't manage without having this house for his business premises. It was extremely difficult because he then made a very substantial financial demand. And I paid him a sum of money, which I borrowed from my father, and I paid back to my father over a period of years. Then finally he left. I always have this fear of being completely without money, because money, as far as I'm concerned, gives you freedom. Nothing more. It gives you freedom. I work at the Royal Opera House. I'm the assistant to the director of casting, and I'm where the whole process starts. For someone who loves theatre, opera, music, whatever, I mean, it couldn't be a better job, really. To be surrounded by unbelievable talent, is extraordinary. I love people who make something of themselves, whereas if you're born a duke or whatever, and there you sit in your big house, that's not interesting to me.
What's your title?
I'm an honourable, which I like to feel that I am. So yeah, I mean that's what you are if you're the daughter of a baron, a hereditary baron. I think that's right. Yeah.
Do you use your title?
No, not at all. The only place that it would ever appear is on paper. And of course it causes total confusion now because people have no idea what it means now. And I get extraordinary official letters sometimes which sort of go something like, Dear Miss Sackville on West, or, whatever. People just don't know what it is, and why on earth should they?
Go forward, Felix.
I couldn't possibly regret my marriage because I have 2 wonderful children. I'm told by neighbours that he sat and drank solidly for about 2 days and 2 nights and then asked for help. I still see Alistair from time to time. After all, we are co-grandparents, and I think I can say we're friends. He's making up for lost time. He was a relatively absentee father, and he's a very hands-on grandfather, which is nice.
I had to sort of do something about turning my life around the way things were. I got a lot of help. And it worked.
And he's now been sober, to his enduring credit, for a quarter of a century. And I'm delighted for him.
I think she loved me a lot more than I ever knew.
I'm okay. I own my own little house. I live quietly, but I have a lot of fun. There's a nice group of girls who invited me to join their book group. Hi, girlie. I'm quite enjoying having a peaceful routine and being in charge. I don't think my life has ever been peaceful, actually. And I'm rather enjoying it. Really, riches are not that important.
We never continued a way of life that we'd got used to before, or with which we were familiar before. We'll turn left at the main road. At the moment, I'm teaching people to drive, and I'm helping people who are caught for speeding and various other motoring offences. Telephones, seat belts, they never learn. And the business keeps piling in. Okay, let's take the next road to the right then, please. I wouldn't have seen myself here 25 years ago. I wouldn't have thought I'd have been teaching people to drive.
What do you think of doing it now that you are?
That's brilliant. I could look back and say, well, it's an achievement. It would have been a better achievement if I'd planned for it in the first place.
We were both emotionally very young and naive. I don't think either of us thought very far ahead. We just did what I think was expected of us. We coped, but just really.
Back in the Country Life office, the team are preparing the present-day photo page.
Who have we got?
Okay, so Polly Sherrod
Yeah.
lives in Cornwall,
Yeah.
and her mum was a frontispiece.
And what's she doing?
She is a digital strategist in
Yeah.
Singapore. But this is shot at home. She's getting married in May.
Crumbs. So what's the story about this rug? Was that her idea?
With her mum. There was a lot of planning involved, I think. And it's a great shot. It's engaging. It's got that sort of
it's
wow
brilliant.
factor.
No, let's go for that. I love it. Absolutely love it. What a fun girl.
It's not the wedding march, just wedding march.
Wedding march?
Is it going to throw it if we were to make it thinner?
But except this is going to be smaller, isn't it?
Do you think that you'll have the same wifely role as your mother and her generation? Will you be the same as wife? Is it the same?
Are you going to obey? That's what we haven't asked. Are you going to obey?
You did, didn't you?
I certainly did. I'm a very dutiful wife, I think, don't you think? What are you going to do?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I haven't even thought about that yet.
Okay.
One part of me is there going, it's traditional to do it, but then I think I really need to think about the words and what they mean. Yeah. No, I just saw it in this one. Because you either go small or you go large, and now it's just be painful and different. I'd like to go middle.
Do you think that you will, in the end, want the kind of country life that your parents have?
Only hope.
That's interesting.
It costs money. I think I think you've got to be lucky. You've got to be lucky in your life. You've got to be fortunate, and you've got to work hard for it. So we'll see. See how hard Sam and I are prepared to work. Bonjour. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Olivia. Tell us about your place.
Oh, well, here we are outside Marrakesh in a completely newly built house, and my 50th birthday present. From? My husband, my darling husband.
Well, I think she deserved it after 5 children and putting up with me for 30 years and...
Living in a soggy Cumbria.
living in Cumbria. I was getting creaky a bit with the damp, and I thought, well, it would be really nice to have somewhere in the sun. And we looked in Italy, and it's...
And it was too dirty, too many bribes, too long.
Too corrupt. France is too expensive and full of all the sort of people I'd like to get away from. And Spain, done. And we were disposing of an asset in London, which had become a headache. And fortuitously, it was just at the right time, just before there was a slump. And it made rather more than we expected to. So we thought, well, this is the only opportunity we'll have in our life, is transferring assets into something that we can enjoy.
So this is the master suite, which I love because everything's in the right place, and as we don't have ensuite in Braithwaite because that wasn't invented when it was built in 1640, we've now got everything, as I say, perfectly arranged. Lovely bedroom.
Now that's a bed.
That's the biggest bed in Marrakesh.
How important is the romantic side of life when you're 30 years into marriage?
It's just as good as it was when we first started.
I don't know what you're trying to ask here.
Darling, new rugs arrived. I'm frightened it's going to be a bit pink, but anyway, we'll see. So, oui, Aziz, vous mettre sur la... It looks even brighter here.
It'll fade out a bit in time with the light. I think it's quite an exciting colour, and
If you like it, darling, it's, you know...
I think it's a style.
It might clash a bit, but I can get over that.
With you two, who's the boss?
No, only sort of...
Well, I've learned not to argue too much. I like a quiet life.
No, but no, Angel, you are the boss. When push comes to shove, I can actually shut up.
Seriously important, then I will put the foot down.
There's no question, and I will stand aside.
Being single, I knew I wanted to get married again. I like being married, it suits me. And so I knew also, my ex-husband had said, you'll never find anybody else. So I thought, right, okay, well, there's a challenge. So I joined an online dating agency. It's like a shopping list. You know, it's like, okay, 6'2", blue eyes, brown hair, yeah, curly, straight, you know, and this sort of thing is great. It's sort of, you know, fantasy man. My friend Roger used to give me a lift to work, and the back road took us past John's house. And Roger would say to me, have I told you about John? And the first time he told me, I thought, that sounds like an interesting person. And I remember Roger calling me up and said, you've been invited to dinner. And I thought, well, I'm often invited to dinner with you. You know, you're my friends, why not? And then he said, no, by John. We drove to dinner and I was like, well, how old is this person, you know? Well, I can't remember if we went to his 50th or his 60th birthday party, they said. Anyway, they finally remembered that it was his 60th birthday party as we drove up, and I remember thinking, oh well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, but in fact, then I saw him and I thought, oh, a trifle hasty, because although he's a bit older than me, he's a remarkably attractive man.
When you arrive in about 10 days' time, we can enjoy the weather and I hope go down to Key Largo. There's rather nice fish restaurants.
Oh yes, and they have lovely key lime. It's important to tear up the list. Tear up the list. You know, just look at the individual.
I got there at 8.
It's quite liberating. It's actually quite liberating. The moment we are going out, and it may end one way or it may end another way, and that's how I see it. And I hope it ends with marriage. I hope, and we have discussed it, but I don't. You know, at the moment we're still moving towards this. We've been moving towards it for some time. And my mother has in fact just recently married, age 71, for the 3rd time. So, yeah, go get them.
Isn't that nice? They're always too long, aren't they, for our waist?
Yes.
We aren't the standard size cook.
No, clearly not.
So you and your mother, one could say, are the marrying types?
Yes, we are. We're very much wife material. I like to think that. Yeah, I really enjoy the kind of... I really enjoy all the stuff that the women's lib people fought against. I love baking. I like it. I like cooking. It's so sad, isn't it? You know, I care about curtains, although I haven't got any here, but that's because they're being made by one of John's ex-girlfriends. I'm all set. This is my wedding dress. Yeah, it's a bit squished, but it will. Actually, I've worn it subsequently. I've worn it to a couple of dances, so it's a very useful wedding dress. So there's that.
How do you feel looking at that now?
I love it. I still love it. I really love it. It's a beautiful thing.
Would you like to wear one again, do you think?
Well, not quite like this, not at my age. I think we go for a slightly more discreet affair next time, if it happens again.
Would you be in country life again?
I don't think they take second time arounds, do they? I don't know. Perhaps we could start a precedent.
Let's see what we've got.
Oh, it looks great.
Can the girls who are in the page today expect the same life that the girls once could?
I don't know if they can. I think the life is always going to be different, but I think they will retain the same hopes and ideals as they always did. It's just not on a plate. You would literally 50 years ago come to the debutants' ball, you'd meet a husband and you'd move straight back into the estate and carry on.
My mother did get me some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful clothes. And they live in a cupboard and I don't know what to do with them. I wore this one, many times. But, the balls were beautiful. But there was 3 and 4 dances a night. It was
exhausting.
But yes, in a way. The only time I would ever wear a ball gown now would be if I went to a ball at Windsor Castle. Nobody gives balls anymore. I haven't worn a tiara now for, must be 25 years. The aristocracy have absolutely no point anymore.
And you're smiling?
Well, I'm not the aristocrat. I married somebody. I've produced some. I'm not one. It always makes me laugh. Every form you have to fill out for anything always says title. But you can't be a duchess because it isn't in a computer program. Most letters are addressed to me. If they come officially, like from the Electricity Board or something, it's Mrs. Duchess, spelt with a T as though I'm from Holland. Mrs. Duchess Bedford. It's ridiculous.
Did you ever marry again?
No, never, and never for 1 second if I wanted to or considered it. And basically, I don't do domestic. That's the problem. Well, it's not a problem, but that is the fact that I don't like cooking. I don't need someone to sit on the sofa and watch telly with. It's such a sort of overused cliche, but to describe myself as a free spirit, I think I probably am. And it was as though with my marriage, that was the one moment in my life where I kind of broke faith with that. And I did something which was kind of against my instincts and against my character. And that's probably one of the reasons it didn't work. I don't think I'm not marriage material.
Seriously though, you're never coming out of this.
I know. Well, I won't be eating any of that salmon in the carriage on the way back. I think that's
No! Good. Nice. Stop, Mummy. Okay, that's to keep it in.
One thing I wanted to ask your mother's question to you. Did you decide what to do about the vows?
yes. I won't be obeying.
Really? So good. Oh no, I didn't know that. That's very good.
Yeah.
Oh, she says casually.
Daddy! Oh, stop there. That's love. Oh, where's my bouquet?
Coming, Mummy's got it.
She's really does.